Chef, I'm going to start with you because I got here yesterday, went straight from airport to hotel to tech rehearsals here. I'm starving, and Chef had it on good authority to tell me about what he's working on, which did not make my stomach feel good at the time. It just made me more hungry, more starving. But why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're up to?
So up to a lot lately, actually. Right now, one of the big things that I'm working on is actually my own restaurant. So this will be my first baby.
Your first nonprofit.
Pretty much. Yeah, that's what in the moment, that's definitely what it feels like. I mean, it really is like a kid, you pay and you give, and hopefully one day there's a return, right? So the name of the restaurant is Trust, and that name doesn't come lightly. Being in Grand Rapids and going through the process of opening your own restaurant. I've opened restaurants for other people. I've opened restaurants for hotels, but being in the seat where I'm doing it for me is a lot different. I'm taking on a lot of hats and a lot of roles, and it's going through these processes of knocking on doors, and getting the door shut in your face, and and next door shut in your face, and ask and not receiving, and it's just like you go through that process, and as you go through that process, you have a moment where you have to make decisions. You say, okay. Do I keep doing this? Do I want another door shut in my face? And it took a second. I went home one night, after another door was shut in my face, and I sat back and I was like, you know what? It's gonna happen, and when it happens, it'll be right. I just have to trust. I have to trust in God. I have to trust the process. I have to trust in everything that I've been through is leading me to the moment. And when that moment's right, I know that moment's right. So. When I got to it and I realized the moment was right, I was like, okay. I was like, well, initially I was gonna call the restaurant something different. I was like, but I can't call it that. I gotta call it something more meaningful, and I was like, trust. Trust made every bit of sense. So the definition of trust is the belief in the reliability, truth, ability, and strength of someone or something. And that couldn't be more true than the whole restaurant industry itself, than Grand Rapids, because I trust in Grand Rapids. I trust that when I open the restaurant, Grand Rapids will show up, I trust that everything that I've been through is gonna put me in a place to be able to deliver something that's so exceptional that Grand Rapids trusts me even more. And I have to trust the people along the way. Along this journey, I've had to trust, everybody. I have to trust my servers when I hire them. I have to trust my cooks. I have to trust, the vendors to give me the product on time and give me the best product possible. So there's so much with this relationship with trust in the hospitality industry. I said that's what I'm going to call it.
I love it. Well, you can trust me that I'll be here to eat at your restaurant. I was going to get a dad joke in one way or the other. You teed it up. Johnny, you came to Dallas.
I did.
You're a restaurateur by birth, by trade, by career, by all the ways. You've got some exciting things going on.
I do. Well, first I want to point out I'm the only non-chef on the stage. But I can work grill and sling some sizzlers if you guys ever need that.
That's all that matters.
And Chef Trimell is a great inspiration. And I just want to thank you for your service to the country that you did. And got to know Chef Trimell a little while back. And you've worked for some great organizations in town. And you've probably served us all a lot of good food over the time. So now we're going to be getting at your own restaurant. So,
thank you.
Your Cafe Momentum story and the concept that you have inspired me and others in the community. I mentioned Bob Shermer, who's here today. That trip that we took to see what you were doing in Dallas was very eye-opening. Your story's incredible. I already love the restaurant industry from growing up and being in the family business. It taught me work ethic. It taught me integrity. It taught me a lot of things that I didn't necessarily get from school. I set records in high school though as most suspended days my sophomore year. I think. So it was something.
Your sophomore year.
Yeah, I got 102 that year. It wasn't good with authority, but
it's all downhill for your team.
Exactly. So it really was a part of my life in a way, and I saw what you did, with Cafe Momentum and for the kids there. And it was just something that I thought for this community couldn't be a better fit and something that we could do here. So we will be unveiling a restaurant here called Concrete Rose. Thanks to you for allowing us to mirror your vision, and we will be opening Concrete Rose here in Grand Rapids.
Well, thank you, because what you're doing is you're setting a precedent around the country that it doesn't have to be Cafe Momentum. It has to be what the community is asking for and what you provide the community, which I think is what actually creates the change that we're all seeking. It's truly a bottoms up. You know better. You know Grand Rapids better from in school or out of school suspension,
Right.
Than any of us. So tell me about timeline.
So we're in the stages of development of the concept and menu development, design. We're probably, I would hope, within a year from today, so within 12 months. Hopefully sooner. We're going to move as quickly as possible, but we want to do it right. And we want it to be a restaurant that really, like Chef Trimell is doing, that really pushes the envelope in Grand Rapids, not just with the purpose, which is critical to our mission, but also just the food and the experience. You know, we've done a great job in the restaurant business in Grand Rapids of innovating that over the years. If you think about the restaurants from 10, 20, 30 years ago in Grand Rapids to today, it's a drastic change and an incredible innovation and improvement in entrepreneurship. So we're looking to push the envelope, and I think you're going to have 2 restaurants that are going to be doing some new, really great things for the community. Exactly.
I'm ready.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm ready. So this is kind of a question for both of you, but I think I'm very biased, but I understand, above and beyond the power of breaking bread, it's the relationship that restaurants have within a community and the way that restaurants show up in a community. I tell people all the time, when Hurricane Harvey hit the Texas Gulf Coast, it was restaurants in Dallas that were holding fundraisers, that were showing up and raising money. When any charity in the city is wanting to do a gala or an event, they call chefs and restaurants to come in and provide food free to help support that organization and that cause. Would love for you guys to take a deep dive into how that manifests itself in your work and in the community of Grand Rapids as a whole.
Sure. Chef?
So as far as, giving back to the community and just being a part of the community, I won't even say giving back, because, being a part of the community is more important than anything, Grand Rapids has always been great with charity events, whether it's March of Dimes or, Chop GR, there's always something going on. There's always something, that you're giving yourself to and you're giving, other people too that are within your establishment, because it's not just about me. I'm one player on the team. I can't do it all, so being able to show up and really show support to the community and bring what we have going on to the community is super important. So having those charity events and different occasions where we can puts us in a spotlight where we can be seen, but it also allows the community to understand that we're embracing them as much as they're embracing us.
Well said. So my grandpa started our restaurant, family restaurant business in the 30s. And his mission was to be part of the community. And he took that very seriously. And then he said that my dad and uncles were also dumb enough to follow him into the nonprofit industry. And but no, they've my dad and uncles have done that their entire lives and career. And then I got to learn a lot from them. And then just in this community in particular, it's really a part of our culture. It's a part of a lot what we do here. And through the restaurant industry, you're already celebrating anniversaries, graduations, and all these special events with the community for their families. And there's certainly a lot of events that you mentioned to be a part of here in Grand Rapids that we love participating in. And with Concrete Rose, we certainly want to continue that effort.
So what's something or some things that this being in this industry has taught you? I think we talk a lot about so many people when we did pop-up dinners, I would at Cafe Minimum, I'd always ask how many people have ever worked in the food service industry, and 100 people in a room, and half of them would raise their hand. 70% of them raise their hand. How many of you still do? And they all put their hand down. Mm-hmm. How many of you learned a very valuable life skill or social skill in that job that have helped you to the success that you've seen today? Then everybody throws their hand back up, which I think is really special and unique about our industry. What has this industry taught you guys?
I think one of the major things is resiliency. You know, I mean, when you talk about tough skin, you know, you work in the kitchen and you put in 20 hours. And you do that.
A day.
Yeah. Yeah. You put in 20 hours a day and you do that, you know, day after day after day, you know, you develop some pretty tough skin, you know. I mean, I've always said that being a chef and working in restaurants, you know, and cooking for someone is probably one of the most vulnerable things that you can do for a person, right? Because when I cook for you, I'm telling you where I came from. I'm telling you what I've been through. I'm telling you my life's journey, you know, and then I'm saying, here it is, judge me, right? And sometimes...
And they do.
They absolutely do. You know, and sometimes it's not always good, you know, so then you have to take that in and you have to gather that and you have to say, okay, you know, is there something broken in this? Do I need to reevaluate this? You know, and you really have to do this self-reflection and inner reflection. And you're talking about food. You know, this is food that you're literally looking at and saying, okay, they didn't like my mashed potatoes. You know, you're looking at yourself at 3 o'clock in the morning over some mashed potatoes.
That's right. It's true.
You know, and when you do it, you know, like it sounds funny, but you know, like you wake up the next morning and you go in and you're like, okay, I'm gonna make the best darn mashed potatoes that I've ever made in life. Like these, you know, they're not gonna say anything about today's mashed potatoes, you know. And it's like, and you do that over and over again, you know. And you're gonna get questions. You're gonna get, you know, questions and conversations. And I think that that's where, you know, doing things that are unique and doing things that are uniquely you know, are so important when it comes to the culinary industry and the hospitality industry, you know, because you open up these conversations. You know, I'm not going to stop doing something this way, you know, because we can have the conversation about it. You know what, I learned this from my grandma, you know, and my grandma came from a house where there were 10 kids and they didn't have anything to eat, you know, and she made this happen. And now I'm fortunate where I have the ability to make something out of something where she made something out of nothing, you know, and those are the stories that we get to talk about, you know, and they can be, you know, super intimate stories, you know, stories that people don't even want to have, but we're going to open that door and we're going to have those conversations.
Yeah, so I remember a few mayors back for the city of Denver said that all politicians should work in a restaurant in their life. Because of the people, you know, you get to see all different walks of people, from who your team is, who you work with, to all the, you know, all your customers. And so I think it's, and whether it's Main Street or Wall Street, it's all, everything's people. So the people skills you learn in a restaurant are unparalleled. And I think that transfers into anything you do in life. We have a lot of our team members, we coach that way. We say, you know, this is something that you can use for the rest of your life. If you're going to college at Grand Valley State or GRCC or where you're going right now, what you're going to be doing here will also benefit you the same way your college education will if you look at it that way and truly want to educate yourself on how to deal with people. And so I think that's one of the best things and most important things I've learned.
And for both of you, you have different paths into the industry. You were born into it. Mm-hmm. You could have escaped it.
Yeah.
Should have, probably.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You weren't. You went head into it. So I would love to hear a little bit, Johnny, what was the attraction? Why'd you stay? Mm-hmm. What draws you to it every day? And Chef, you know, what led you into it in a permanent state?
Okay.
Sure. So people, honestly, I love people. I love serving people. I love having the opportunity to have a team of people that truly have a desire to have hospitality part of their day and make other people's lives better. So I've enjoyed that part of it. And then just the community, seeing my family do it for all these years, almost, you know, approaching almost 100 years in the community. I've seen how many people it can affect. And I saw when my grandfather passed away, standing room only, out of a church, and just it was just all walks of people, all people that he affected, and all from Grand Rapids or West Michigan, and they just loved him because he was truly a restaurateur that took care of people. And to me, that's inspiring, and we're going to continue that and give back and have purpose in the community, and that's our goal, and that's, again, what we want to do with Concrete Rose, and then even maybe taking that to another level with your inspiration.
I'm all in.
Yeah, appreciate that.
So I got to go way back, so I'm going to date myself just slightly. So I was actually born in Chicago, Illinois. For those of you that are familiar with Chicago, once upon a time, they had a housing development called the Cabrini Green Projects. My family lived in the Cabrini Green Projects. I lived in projects about a block away, 2 blocks away, but I was always at the projects as well, because that's where my family was, that's where my cousins were. I ended up in a foster home at a young age, until my grandma came and got me. And my grandma came and got me and said, you coming home, right? And my grandma had 10 kids. She always cooked, always. Greens, macaroni and cheese, fried chicken, cube steak, you name it. She was cooking, always. And she had this open door policy where people came because grandma was gonna feed them, So when I moved to Michigan, my dad moved to Michigan, eventually got custody of us, moved to Michigan, had a job at Prince Corporation. I would go back to Chicago for the summers, and I would spend time with my grandma. And it was the best times of my life. And we did nothing but cook, and I would go in the kitchen and, Grandma, you need anything? Baby. Okay. One day she sends me to the butcher shop. One day says, run to the butcher shop. I need you to go get that from Mr. Smitty. And she gives me a note. No money, just a note. So I take off running, go to the butcher shop, come back with what she asked. Could have been anything, but I don't know. Give it to her, and she starts cooking. And she's frying, and she's doing this. And I say, Grandma, you want me to wash that pan? Baby, that's the good stuff right there. That's how you make the good gravy, sweetheart. I say, oh, okay. So she does this, and she adds this, and she whisks. Some things happen, and she makes magic happen, and she makes the most incredible meal ever, and it's white rice, it's cube steak, it's gravy, sauteed onions. And I'm like, okay, that's incredible, go back home, I get a job. My first job was at Frosty 2 in Holland, and from there I moved to Schooners, from there to Applebee's, so I've been in kitchens, and I graduate high school, came to GRCC, and I did about half a semester and said, college isn't for me. So I joined the Marine Corps. And while I'm in the Marine Corps, I constantly find myself behind the grill, in the kitchen cooking. It was the place where I just felt the most comfortable. So I get out of the Marine Corps and I end up right back in the kitchen, TGI Fridays, and I'm working one night and one of the servers says, hey, can you cook me something? I was like, yeah, what you want, some JD ribs? Anything with JD sauce is good, So she's like, no, something off menu. Like, okay. And I put something together and she's like, oh my God, why isn't this on the menu? I said, they never put this on the menu. And that's when it hit me. I said, okay, I keep coming back to this and I can't outrun it. So I might as well run into it as fast as I can and as hard as I can. So that night I get home, at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, I started looking at culinary schools, and GRCC, Secchi Institute of Culinary School, pops up. And it's ranked as one of the best in the nation. And I'm reading all the reviews, and I'm like, okay, this is like right here. It's like 5 minutes away. I can walk to it, So the next morning, I called, and after a lot of stuff going on, I enrolled, And I got to school, and at first I thought I made the biggest mistake of my life, because my first class in college was, it was statistics. I took an elective, and it happened to be the only elective open, right? So I take statistics because I need to fill this course, right? Well, when we go through this chorus, I'm like, numbers and letters are disappearing. I don't know where anything is going, and this might be terrible, right? This is horrible, you know. And then I get to the lab class, and in the lab class is where I realized exactly where I needed to be. You know, in the lab class, they were like, okay, today we're gonna make a veloute, and I was like, veloute? I was like, hey, what's a veloute? And they're like, you know, it's with the roux, and then you got to put the chicken stock in it. I'm like, okay, and we start making it, and I said, oh. That's the good gravy. I said, I can make that. I can make the good gravy. So I start making the good gravy, you know. And the chef comes over, Chef Campbell, he comes over and he tastes it. And he leans back and he looks at me. Boys and girls. And he has everybody taste it. He says, you guys taste that? It's made with love. And that was where I knew. I was like, okay, this is it, you know. I did my first year, no, it was my first semester of culinary school. And at the end of that semester, right before the end of that semester, I ended up adopting my nephews and niece. And everybody expected me to quit, you know. So now I have 7 kids. I went from 1 kid to 7 kids, you know, so now I have all these kids and everybody expects me to quit. And I doubled down on winning, and I said, no, this is it. You know, like, they're not gonna see me quit, they're not gonna see me give up. You know, earlier, you know, we were talking, I think it was Anthony talked about people being a statistic and not being able to make it out. And you talked about it as well, people going back to that same neighborhood. I happen to be one of the people that came from there, and I'm here now, so I get to be, thank you. I get to be someone that kids in the community see that made it, you know, not necessarily a Northern Star for them, but they can look at me and they can relate, because that's half the battle. Half the battle is seeing to be able to achieve, you know, and that's why kids relate to LeBron James and Kobe Bryant's and Michael Jordan's, right? Because they can see that, you know. That's right. You know, for a lot of inner city youth, when they watch TV, they saw Mario Batali's, Bobby Flay's. Mm-hmm. So when they walk into the restaurant and they see me with a snapback on, you know, my chef coat, and they say, wait, hold up, I can be that. It made such a huge thing, and it was like, I'm not making an impact just because I'm cooking food. You know, like, yeah, I absolutely love to cook, and I'm gonna try to cook to the best of my ability, but I'm making an impact because people can see a way out through cooking, and that's huge.
Mm-hmm. All right, as restaurant people, the thing that we will go to our graves, the last sound we'll hear is the ticket machine going. So I want to make sure that we stay on time or reasonably close to on time. Thank you for the way that you guys show up in Grand Rapids. It's not surprising based on being in the hospitality industry, but it is incredibly amazing, and we're all grateful. And for everybody in the room, I think that the major takeaway is you can criticize anything you want at Trust, except for if it says grandma's, whatever, then those are fighting words. Good luck to you both. I'm here. I'm ready to work the line, so my elbows are a little rusty.
That's okay. We get you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.